There is a strange belief buried inside almost every conversation about how the body changes after 40. The belief goes like this: whatever you notice changing is changing where you notice it. The neck loses definition, so you work the neck. The jawline softens, so you address the jaw. The posture rounds forward at the shoulders, so you open the chest. Each symptom gets its own treatment. Each address gets its own remedy. This is understandable. It is also, in most cases, the wrong map. The lower back is doing something to your neck that has nothing to do with your neck. And once you understand the path between those two things, once you can trace the mechanical logic from the lumbar spine up through the tissues that connected to the cervical vertebrae, the 2-minute reset stops being a curiosity and becomes something closer to a necessity. Not because I'm telling you it should, because the anatomy argues for it, step by step, and the logic holds all the way up the chain. Let's follow the chain. Most people who notice their neck losing definition after 40 have tried the obvious things. They've added neck stretches. They've worked on forward head posture. They've changed their pillow, adjusted their monitor height, maybe added some shoulder blade work. And the neck, by and large, does not come back. The definition stays soft. The muscular relief that was once visible, the slight delineation of the posterior cervical muscles, the way the neck once held a particular firmness when viewed from the side, it stays gone. And the frustrating part is that this happens to people who are paying attention. People who are not neglecting their bodies. People who are doing the work. What those people have in common is not laziness. It is an incomplete map of where the work needs to happen. The neck is downstream of the problem, and you cannot restore a downstream structure by treating it as though it is the source. So the question becomes, what is the source? The spine is a column, and like any column, its structural integrity at the top depends entirely on what is happening at the base. The lumbar spine, the 5 vertebrae of your lower back, carries a natural inward curve called the lordosis. This curve is not decorative, it is load-bearing. It is the mechanism by which the entire weight of your torso, your arms, and your head is distributed across the posterior musculature and the surrounding connected tissue in a way that keeps every structure above it in its optimal position. When that curve is present and healthy, the posterior chain, the continuous band of muscle and connected tissue running from the base of the skull down to the heels, is under the right kind of tension. Not tight, tensioned. There is a difference, and the difference matters enormously. Tension tissue is alive. It is responsive. It communicates. Tight tissue is compressed and stuck, pulling everything attached to it toward the floor. Lose the lumbar curve, and the base of the column shifts. The thoracolumbar fascia, the broad, dense sheet of connected tissue wrapping the lower back and connecting to the deep lumbar extensors, goes from its working length into a flattened, extended position. In that position, it cannot generate the upward pull through the posterior chain that keeps the rest of the spine stacked. What it does instead, over months and years, is something far more consequential. It adapts. Thomas Myers, who spent years mapping the fascial continuity lines in the body through anatomy trains, documented what researchers and anatomists had observed for decades. The posterior superficial line runs without interruption from the plantar fascia at the base of the foot, up through the sacrotuberous ligament, up along the erector spinae, and all the way to the epicranial fascia at the top of the skull. This is not a metaphor for connection. This is structural, physical, measurable continuity. Pull at any point along that line, and you pull at every point above it. Now follow the logic. When the lumbar lordosis flattens, which happens progressively after 40, through a combination of hip flexor dominance, weakened deep lumbar extensors, and the cumulative mechanical loading of prolonged sitting, the base of that posterior line shifts. The thoracolumbar fascia, no longer under its functional tension, does not simply go slack and stay there. The body does not tolerate slack. It shortens the tissue to take up the slack, which changes the resting tension in the erector spinae, which changes the mechanical environment of every vertebra those muscles attach to. By the time this compensation reaches the cervical spine, the thoracic and cervical erectors are being pulled in a direction that progressively rotates the cervical vertebrae forward. This is different from what most people understand as forward head posture, which is usually described as the head drifting in front of the shoulders. What is happening here is subtler, and in many ways more damaging to visible structure. The cervical vertebrae themselves rotate. The muscles that attach the posterior aspects of those vertebrae, the ones that create the visible definition of the neck when they are functioning correctly, are now being held in a chronically lengthened position, lengthened beyond their optimal working range. Carlo Stecco's dissection work at the University of Padua helped clarify something important about what this means for tissue quality. The thoracolumbar fascia is not passive packaging. It is densely innervated, containing mechanoreceptors and proprioceptive endings that communicate directly with the motor system. When it is held in a non-functional position for extended periods, it does not simply stay there quietly. It sends signals that modify muscle recruitment patterns throughout the posterior chain. The muscles of the posterior neck, the ones whose definition you are looking for in the mirror, receive altered recruitment signals. They go quiet. Not from disuse and isolation, from a system-wide change in the mechanical context they are operating within. This is the lumbar-cervical fascial relay. The lower back loses its architecture. The thoracolumbar fascia adapts to the new position. The erector chain changes its tension pattern. The cervical vertebrae rotate forward. The posterior cervical muscles lose their optimal working length and their recruitment signal. The neck definition disappears. Not because the neck changed first, because the lower back changed first, and the neck was the last address to receive the bill. Every step in that chain follows from the one before it. There is no step that requires you to take anything on faith. The anatomy is documented. The fascial continuity is measurable. The consequence at the cervical end is what you see in the mirror every morning. Now consider what it means to investigate your own body the way a detective investigates a case. A detective who arrives at the crime scene, the visible place where something has gone wrong, and treats only what they see there, will close the wrong case every time. The discipline of forensic investigation is the discipline of asking where the evidence points, not where the damage appears. And the better you become at investigating your own body, the more your investigation resembles that process. You get good at tracing backward from what you see to where it started. You stop treating the address where the damage shows and start finding the address where the decision is. Understanding your own posterior chain works the same way. The more you trace its logic, the more you think the way the body thinks, which is in chains and relays and consequences, not in isolated muscles and isolated problems. The people who carry this problem, and there are many of them, far more than any of them realize when they are doing their neck stretches alone, share a particular experience that is worth describing carefully. They are not people who have abandoned their health. They are often the opposite. They are the ones who read about posture. They are the ones who invested in the ergonomic chair and then felt vaguely betrayed when it did not solve the thing they bought it to solve. They noticed the photograph, not every photograph, but the specific one, often taken from a slight angle, where the neck looks not quite like itself. Not dramatically different, just softer, less defined than they remember it being, without being able to name when the change happened or why. They try the neck stretches and feel a temporary looseness that does not translate to anything visible. They add the shoulder exercises and feel the upper back open, which is real progress, but the neck stays the same. The reason the neck stays the same is that the map they have been given points to the wrong location. And the map is not wrong because anyone was being careless. It is wrong because the connection between the lower back and the cervical spine is not intuitive. The two structures feel like different buildings. They are actually one continuous system, and the building codes at the base determine what is possible at the top. These people are your neighbors and your colleagues, and the people standing in front of you at the pharmacy. They are doing the reasonable thing, which is treating what they can see. The unreasonable thing, which turns out to be the correct thing, is treating what they cannot see, in a location that does not appear to have anything to do with the problem. This is where the framework matters. Not a list of exercises, not a protocol to memorize. A decision architecture for how to approach the lower back in a way that creates the conditions for the cervical chain to reorganize. There are 3 conditions the lumbar spine needs to meet before the thoracolumbar fascia can begin to resume its functional tension and the erector chain can begin transmitting different signals upward. Miss any one of them, and the effort is real, but the mechanism is incomplete. The first condition is the presence of lumbar arch under load, not passive lordosis, the curve you get when you are lying face down on the floor and gravity creates it for you. Loaded lordosis, the lumbar spine in its curve, while the deep extensors are asked to maintain it against some mild resistance. This is the condition that tells the thoracolumbar fascia it is in a working position, not a resting one. The distinction matters because the fascia's mechanoreceptors respond to load, not position alone. The arch without load is an architectural detail. The arch under load is a functional signal. To create this, come to a hands and knees position with your hands directly under your shoulders and your knees under your hips. Let the lower back find its natural arch. Do not force it down into an exaggerated curve. Do not flatten it. Find the position where the lumbar spine feels like it is floating between the 2 extremes. Now hold that position while gently pressing your hands into the floor without letting your arms bend. That gentle arm press loads the shoulder girdle, which through the serratus and the thoracolumbar fascia creates just enough posterior chain tension to give the lumbar arch something to work against. Hold this for 45 seconds. Breathe steadily. The arch is the work. The second condition is deep lumbar extensor activation without surface erector gripping. This is where most people go wrong when they try to quote unquote strengthen the lower back. They recruit the surface erectors, the long muscles you can feel running alongside the spine, and those muscles grip. Gripping is not the same as supporting. A gripping surface erector actually compresses the lumbar vertebrae and reduces the fascial tension rather than optimizing it. What you need instead is the activation of the multifidus, the deep segmental stabilizer that runs from one vertebrae to the next and is responsible for the fine-tuning of the lumbar curve under load. To find this without gripping, from the same hands and knees position, imagine someone placing a finger just beside your lumbar spine, halfway down. Not pressing hard, just resting there. The multifidus activation feels like a very slight, deep firming around that contact point. Not a clench, not a squeeze. A deep, slow, stable engagement. Some people find it by imagining they are gently drawing the lumbar vertebrae toward each other from the inside. It should feel almost invisible from the outside. Hold this for 30 seconds within the 45-second arch hold. You are looking for the deep support without the surface grip. The third condition is duration. The thoracolumbar fascia begins to respond to positional change in its mechanoreceptors within 30 to 60 seconds of loading. But the recruitment pattern changes in the erector chain take several repetitions across several days before they begin to show up in the resting tone of the tissue. This means 2 minutes is not arbitrary. It is the minimum threshold for sending a signal that the nervous system can begin to consolidate. A shorter reset creates a moment of correct position. A 2-minute reset creates a moment of correct position plus the beginning of a proprioceptive conversation between the fascia and the motor system. The full reset. Hands and knees, lumbar arch present, gentle arm press loading the shoulder girdle, deep multifidus engagement without surface gripping, 45 seconds. Transition. Lower your hips slowly toward your heels, maintaining as much lumbar arch as possible for the first 10 seconds of the movement, then releasing fully into a child's pose for 15 seconds. Return to the starting position. Repeat the 45-second hold. One more transition, down and back. The full sequence runs just under 2 minutes. Done in the morning, before your body loads the compensations of the day, it sends a different foundational signal to the thoracolumbar fascia and through it to everything above. The neck does not change in a week. Fascial remodeling operates on a longer timeline than muscle activation. But the recruitment pattern in the posterior cervical muscles, the signal that tells those muscles they have a job to do in a position that serves them, can begin to shift within a few weeks of consistent reset work. Not because you are doing neck work, because you have changed the mechanical context the neck is operating in. What you are doing when you do this reset is not stretching the lower back. You are not releasing tension. You are rebuilding a condition. You are asking the base of the column to remember its architecture, and you are giving the entire chain above it, including the posterior cervical muscles whose definition you want back, a different set of instructions to work from. This is where the question opens up rather than closes down. Because once you understand that the neck is a downstream structure, once that relay from the lumbar spine up through the fascia and the erector chain becomes legible to you, you start asking a different question than how do I fix my neck? You start asking what else in the body is receiving bills from addresses it has no idea are sending them. The knee that aches is downstream of something. The shoulder that won't sit right is downstream of something. The jaw that tightens at night is downstream of something. The body does not produce isolated problems. It produces systems of consequence. And the place where the consequence is visible is almost never the place where the decision was made. We spend a great deal of time, most of us, treating consequences. The 40-year accumulation of small architectural decisions, the way you sit, the way you load, the way the hip flexors learn to do the work the lumbar extensors were supposed to be doing. Those decisions compound quietly, and the bills arrive in places that seem unrelated. The neck that used to have definition is one of those bills. The reset addresses one payment. The deeper inquiry is whether you want to understand the system well enough to stop generating the debt in the first place. That inquiry is downstream of tonight, but the 2 minutes is not.